All right, we are live. Yay. I will warn everybody, it is super windy out here. So I am hoping that the internet connection stays friendly to me for the entire time. If not, we will reschedule because I don't want anybody to miss a word of this enlightening conversation. I said that like I was being sarcastic and I really wasn't. But I have my sarcastic tone like kicked in there and I meant it. So, welcome to everybody who is joining us live and everybody who is joining us after the fact, watching the video. Super excited for this guest today because we have had some conversations in the past and have talked about that it would be really neat to do a live conversation and see where the conversation goes and let people listen in on that and get comments and questions and feedback. So I do want to let you first tell everybody about who you are and what you do, because I like the audience to hear it from you because they get to hear where you get excited and where you light up when you talk about things. And then we'll launch right into our conversation. So whatever you want to tell folks about who you are and what you do, go for it.
Sounds good. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Manuela Powell. I am a former breast cancer surgeon. I'm now a life coach for women. I still working with women my whole entire life because I have seen my years as a surgeon that a lot of women have done everything right. They're healthy. They do the Pilates and the yoga and eat the kale. And then still they were there in my office at 40 with cancer. So I now help them stop people pleasing, do things as they want to do, be the person they want to be, and unbecome everything that they're not, because I feel like that will decrease a lot of diseases. Cancer, of course, there's many causes, but that is definitely one. And so many autoimmune disease and mysterious symptoms can be fixed just by you saying no when you want to say no instead of saying yes. So that's what I do now.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's intrigued me from the beginning, because with your past experience and knowledge, I mean, there's already been stuff that's been put out about the science behind what we do to ourselves with stress and people pleasing, et cetera. But the fact that you saw it, lived through it, and have applied it both in terms of your coaching and in terms of your own life, that toxic, I mean, really that's what it is, toxic stress that we put into our bodies when we don't allow ourselves to be natural and at ease with what matters to us. So two things. One thing, which is interesting because I noticed you're wearing sparkle, and I was thinking this just before you hopped on. I was thinking I should have worn something sparkly, because when I think of you, I think of sparkle.
Yay!
And not just because of that's what you wear, but that like literally that's what you're all about. I think the kind of the notion of not so much about sprinkling sparkle everywhere we go, which is lovely as well, but sprinkling the sparkle on ourselves. And I wanted to tell a little story that then is going to segue into a question. So interestingly, I have never been a big sparkle person. I wasn't opposed to sparkle. I wasn't opposed to other people wearing it. It wasn't like I ever said, I'm not going to wear something sparkly, but it just wasn't my go-to. And recently I've kind of noticed that I've started grabbing some sparkly things to the degree that I was out shopping with my husband, who is absolutely incredible. I know that some men do not enjoy shopping with their significant other. He is fantastic and will give me feedback. And so I pulled this pair of pants out that had sparkles all the way down the side. They had this little sparkle inset in them. And he kind of looked at the pants and looked at me and was kind of trying to decide like what to say, because I think he was probably confused because that's not normally what I pull off. So I was like, well, I don't know that I see you wearing them. He wasn't saying that in a critical way. He was saying it in a like, when do I see
you're going to put it in your closet and never.
Right. It's not going to get worn. So I kind of was like, yeah, you're right. I said, strange though, I keep coming back to these. Like I kept coming back to this pair of pants. And we've all experienced that, where you have an item that you're like, yes, no. So I kept coming back to him, and I said to him, I'm like, I really think I have to get these pants. And I even was like listing for him, like, these are the places that I'm going to wear them. Things that I don't yet have on the calendar, but that I, in my mind, have said are going to happen this year. Like I'm making happen this year. And I'm like, that's where I could wear these pants. And it was a really empowering thing for me to purchase this pair of pants with sparkle on them. And I since have gotten other sparkle items as well, and know that I'm going to wear these sparkle pants. And somebody that was talking to me about it said, I do notice that a lot of times when women hit a specific age, they start to gravitate more towards sparkle. And that could potentially be because there's that, like, I'm not afraid to let myself just be who I am anymore. And I do think there's that. I mean, there are obviously people who wear sparkle sooner, but I know a lot of what you do is helping people to feel confident in, buying the sparkly pants, wearing the sparkly shoes. And that can be both literal, but that can also be symbolic of being a little outside of what we would normally allow ourselves to be. And particularly the age range that you work with is 50 plus, but that can apply to anybody of any
Yeah.
gender and of any age, right? Is allowing
Yeah.
yourself to shine. What are some of the ways that you kind of, in addition to modeling it, which I love your sparkle today, what are some of the ways you encourage people to find and live their sparkle?
Yeah, I love that. Live their sparkle. I'm going to use that. And yes, and just to your point, it was interesting because I was very opposed to sparkle. I was actively opposed to them when I was younger because I don't know. And I don't really remember if my mom wore them or not, but it was something that I was like, okay, just chill. Like, that's too much.
Right,
Whatever
right.
it was. Right. And then one day I did one thing and it was like, oh, I kind of like that. And then it just became a thing that, like, it really makes me happy when I'm wearing sparkles. And I do wear them normally, to the point where it was this dad at pickup one day that it was like, I always see you and I wanted to ask you, what kind of job do you do that you have to dress like that? I was like, I don't have to do anything. I work in my house. I do this because it really delights me and it's great. And I see that a lot of people like you will comment on it or something, and it might inspire people. But honestly, I do it because it inspires me. And I think for people, when I work with them, I think the first thing that is so hard for us is to realize what are the things you like, because not everybody will like, and let's use the sparkles, not everybody likes sequins.
Right.
That's fine. Maybe your wearing sparkles is, I don't know, I'm going to go learn to play the guitar that I haven't my whole entire life and I always wanted to. And I will go to an open mic and I will sing or whatever, right? And I think it's letting go of the I should behave like this, and this is, I don't know, my age, my career, my whatever thing we put in ourselves to say I cannot do this thing because society, there's this, BS rule that someone one day decided. It's not even because it's not written anything anywhere, but we believe these things. Well, we have to behave this way if you're a professional person. I'm a former doctor. I didn't dress like this as a doctor, but I had red hair. I had short hair. And some people would be like, oh, you're all weird. I remember patients say, like, what is that hippie doctor? I don't know why they thought I was hippie. I was never hippie. But I think at some point I would wear this thing in my head, like a, a scarf in my head. And they would say, oh, where's that hippie dog? It was like, it's a silk scarf. Hello, that's not hippie. But anyway, it was like, no, you can. Of course you can. You can do whatever you want. But of course, with age, you start noticing that it's like, well, I don't really have to do, like that is a rule that I really don't have to follow. And I say that with age, at the same time, noticing this new generation, the people who are less than 20 right now. And they're amazing. I think they're going to save us all, because really these people are just like, wait, but why? Why are we doing this? And why do I have to follow this specific, even the rules? And of course, if the light is red, stop at the light. That's a good rule. Let's stop. Let's take that one. Right. But there are so many that we don't have to follow. And I think the disease part, in all ways of disease, be it mental disease, be it actual physical disease, it comes from the part of you inside you, and you can call the soul, the inner higher self, whatever. There's a part inside of us that knows that all of this is total BS. Like, why are you telling yourself that you cannot, I don't know, dye your hair this certain color because you're whatever age or whatever profession?
Right.
So I think that is the part that, because of that disconnect, because of the inner part of us that has evolved all these thousands and millions of years to come to this point and be like, but wait, but why? That makes no sense at all. And then that creates whatever, disconnection it does in our bodies to create disease.
Yeah. And there's a couple parts to that. I mean, I think it is, so there's going to be some perception. So we do need to be aware of that, whether we think that it's valid or not. There is going to be some perception of different things that we do. People are going to take their experiences and what they project onto situations. And that's okay. So sometimes we are going to have to accept that, like, we are going to be perceived in a certain way. And so you are going to have to pick and choose who you want to be your audience, your circle of friends, et cetera, in regards to that. And the other thing is what you noted, which is that it's not, sometimes it's going to be not wearing the sparkle. Maybe somebody has been told to wear sparkle their entire life, right? So it's not that we're necessarily saying everybody needs to be more of a certain thing. We're saying everybody needs to be more real to themselves. And that was kind of why I said we're going to talk about grabbing hold to let go. I think when we grab hold of what is
Yeah.
real, what is true, what is authentic to us, we
Yeah.
can start to let go of those other things that aren't going to go away, right? Some
And
of
that
those
is
things
that
aren't
is
going to go
such an
away.
important point, because a lot of times I think I saw that in many clients and friends and people in life saying almost like it's not a conscious thing, but it's like, well, I was always like that, right? Kind of like, if I was always the person who likes parties, I can never say no to a party because I'm the party person. Or if I am the introvert
Mm,
who likes sitting and reading, well, now I can't just start going to parties because that will be weird and people are going to have thoughts. The first thing that I would tell people is like, people already have thoughts. People have thoughts about you. A lot of them are not very nice, not very kind, and hopefully it will stay in their minds and not go anywhere. That's fine. You don't have to worry about that. What people think of you is none of our businesses. Like we can't.
mm,
Each person has a version of us inside their minds that it's not the real version. It's just the version they constructed, and we do the same for other people. So
right.
we just have to kind of be okay with that, which is really hard. But once we're okay with that, I'm like, okay, so they already have thoughts. If you're too quiet, or if you're a quiet person who likes reading, oh my God, that person's so quiet, so boring. If you're the extrovert who likes parties, oh my God, for sure that's going to happen. So I think the moment you realize, okay, people are going to have thoughts. If you can't please everyone, because you can't, as absolutely impossible, how about you just please yourself in the things that we can, because there's so many things in life that we
Right.
do have to do, and there's no, we have to pay taxes, if we don't want to go to jail or pay a lot of money after. We
You're
do
like,
have to
oh,
follow certain rules that I was like, okay, this is not great. I don't love cooking for my kids and having them say, man, this sucks. Right. But like, I still don't want them to starve. So like, okay, I'm going to cook for you guys and you're just going to eat. But there's so many things that we tell ourselves that we absolutely have to do that we do not. And one of them is, first of all, caring of other people, about other people's thoughts, even if it's people really close to us, because those are the hardest one. I feel like a lot of people, if you put yourself online for a bunch of strangers, like, it's fine, nobody knows me. But when your mom or your cousin or your brother or your partner, they're going to say, wait, but that's not you. What's going on? And then you're going to have
mm,
to explain yourself, which is maybe you're going to have to unexplain yourself, right? And be like, no, there's just, I've been, if you look at pictures or videos of me in 2019, which is not that long ago, I was completely different, spoke in a different way. I looked different and all that, but that's fine. We don't have, nobody needs to, okay, this is now what's going on, let me explain to you. No, it's your life story. You can hit them with a plot twist at any point, right? As the meme goes.
absolutely. Well, yeah. So my word for the year is and. And I think what
Yes,
you're
I saw
touching on
that.
is a lot of the and as well. And it's,
Yeah.
well, first off, we can change. We can, our perspective, our tastes can change, what our preferences are can change. But we can also have those two parts together, right? Like I talked about on one of the other conversations with somebody, right? People will ask that mountains or ocean question. And I'm like, well, I like both the mountains and the ocean. Now I realize that that's supposed to be like, okay, like where would you most want to spend your time? And I understand that.
I
But
hate
I
those
think we
questions. I
do
can
tend,
never
yeah,
answer them because,
we
like,
do tend
why?
to, yeah. Yeah. It's like this dichotomy, like, well, it's this or
Like,
this,
when are
but
we
we can
talking
have the
about? Is it
and.
summer? Is it winter? Is it today? Is it for a month from now?
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to
Vacation,
want.
living,
Right.
exactly.
I was like, I
Exactly.
have so many follow-up questions. And that is a great example, because we want to fit in those boxes, the mountains or beaches.
Right.
No, you can have one now and you can have one tomorrow and you can have the other one. So I think when the more we see that kind of example of when you look at things this way, that is a
Right.
brilliant example of, like, I will not put myself in these boxes, because it doesn't make sense. I always hated the what's your favorite whatever question. I'm like, I don't know when. Ask me today is something,
Right. Right.
tomorrow is a
Right.
different one. I don't know. That's why I travel with a giant suitcase no matter what I go, because I don't know how I'm going to be feeling. Who's going to wake up that day? If it's like a chill person who just wants to put, really comfortable and chill pants and very low profile, or this. So I'll have to take them all and see. And we can. That is the fun part.
Right.
We do not
Right.
have to choose between mountain or beach. We can have both.
Right. You can be the introverted book person and you can also be the person that goes out to the party. But to do that, I think in order to do that, there's some self-discovery, whether it comes from working with a coach or whether it comes from journaling. There's very, got Got it. There's various ways that that can happen, but we have to take the time to understand ourselves and listen to ourselves. And like you said, some people will say, "Well, I was always like that," right? And we're not saying you're not like that anymore. You're adding an additional facet. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's a pivot, but sometimes it's just an additional thing. And so getting comfortable with that, and in order to maneuver through those, you do need to take time to understand and listen to yourself, and kind of cut out some of the noise of the voices of yourself from your past and of people in your past and your current situation that are going to say things from their perception. Because really,
Yeah.
even past versions of ourselves have perceptions that we have since clarified, right? When you're a kid and you think like 30 is really old, right? Then you hit 30 and you're like, I am young as can be, right?
Yeah.
So, like perceptions, even our past versions of ourselves have perceptions about our current versions of ourselves that we're still resetting the story on and explaining. I'm here, I'm at this place I thought about I was going to get to, and it doesn't look like what I thought when
Yeah.
I was 15, 20, whatever it was going to look like. And I think particularly for 50, right? Because that number, that bridge point, right? The
Mhm.
half century club, there it does carry a lot of weight, and there's a lot of connotations because there are physical changes that are going on with you. There are changes that are going on with the people that have been your friends and your family and all of those different things. So it becomes really important to make sure that you're in touch with who you are now and
Yeah.
what is going to give you your most valuable experience in terms of being able to live your gifts and do it in a way that brings you peace.
Absolutely. And one thing that I see in that regard is funny because I was just having a conversation through text with a friend, and he's 31. So, a baby. And I don't know what he was saying, but he was saying, he was like, "Oh, I'm so glad that now I'm discovering whatever it was that he discovered about himself." And I was saying, it's so cool that you're doing that at 30 instead of almost 50, or whatever it was when I did it. Right. But I see sometimes in clients or in people that they almost don't want to change because they're like, "Oh, I miss I just like, if I do this now, I'm going to be like, I could have done it before." Just, it's only too late when you're dead. Like right now, it's not too
Mm,
late. So I feel that now I can really be like, I am totally fine with this has have happened to me when I was whatever age I was, because that's what needed to happen. I needed all those experiences to be able to do this now. And maybe some people are born with it. Maybe some people are going to
mm,
do it 20, 30, 40. I don't know. Maybe some people are never going to do it. Most people are never going to get to the point of saying, this is exactly who I am and I'm living the life that I quote unquote
right,
supposed to be living.
right.
So I really don't, that doesn't give me angst, but it does to a lot of people. So I think it's really thinking. I see my mom is 73 and she's traveling, she's doing a bunch of stuff, she's enjoying her life. Like, even if it just have until then, how much fun can you have? Even if it's 1 year,
Right,
it doesn't matter. It's like, well, you're still gonna be 73 if you're gonna be 73. Do you
right,
want to be the person who is not doing the things, or do you want to be the person who is doing way more of the things that you want to do?
right. Well, yeah, because you can't really control. I mean, we can do things to maximize our quality and quantity of life, but we can't really control the length or how much life we're going to have. But we can control the
Oh,
amount of living we do in the life that we have. And
yeah.
that's the piece that we need to do. And when you were talking about discovery too, like I literally think that there's iterations to your discovery. Like your friend, and I'm not saying he's going to rediscover himself, but I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I discovered myself at 30 also, and then again at 40, and then again
Exactly.
at. So I think
Yeah.
we do discover ourselves and we learn things about ourselves at each of those stages, but we learn them in a new way with the new experiences. And so it's taking that pause point to recognize like what has shifted in my outside circumstances or my inside viewpoint that maybe I'm seeing things a little differently right now than I did in the past.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that because it does. And I fall victim to that. I started doing lives on Facebook in like 2011 and then I stopped. And
Mhm.
I think, oh my gosh, if I had kept going just because of volume of time, I'm not talking about because I was going to be the best ever, but how much further along would I be? But at the same time, okay, but I wouldn't be the person that I am now because I would have lived my life in a different way.
Yeah.
So you've got to live forward into that, like whatever I discovered in the past, what am I going to
Yeah.
discover today? What
Ex-
new view awaits me
yeah.
around the trail, around the bend on this trail?
And that is the thing, because then when you discover that one, instead of being like, oh my God, I didn't do all the lies. Well, just go and do one, start now. Isn't that the Chinese proverb that goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best is right now?
Right.
Because there's
Right.
no,
Right.
you can't go back and do that now, but you can. And the more, and it's not, I know a lot of us coaches say these things, and people sometimes hear it like, oh yeah, very easy to now decide, oh yeah, everything was fine, everything happened for a reason, and here I am, and everything is perfect. That's not how things happen. You really need to work to get to the point to truly believe that, and to see things as what you said. The reason I don't want to go back in time and change any single thing in my life is because I would be in a different place, and I really like this place right now. So it's like, that's fine. Everything that happened that was wrong, the wrong choice, whatever, here I am now. So it was
Yeah.
all the right choices. And it's really, it's work to get there. It's not like, oh, I just want to not regret things, right? You have to really do some work to get there, but it's not impossible. And it doesn't have to take a lifetime. If you think about the things that you can do, sometimes you're like, oh, that's never going to happen. And then when you blink, it's 1 year has passed and you've done nothing. Like, wow, a lot of things would have happened if you'd done something, right? If you found a coach, a therapist, I don't know, a new job, a hobby, new friends, got out of the damn relationship that is toxic, whatever, all the things, time is not going to stop for you to make the time be right. It's either now or who knows.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's so important for us. And I think, as negative a connotation as social media and things like that sometimes get, because there's a lot of misinformation and there's negative things that take place. There's also an opportunity right now for you to listen to other people sharing stories that are going to resonate with you and remind you that you are not alone in that feeling of, dang it, why didn't I do this sooner? Or I'm not happy right now, right?
Yeah.
Within moderation. I don't advise anybody to read every self-help book and watch everybody. You're going to get a lot of chaos in your head.
Yes.
Right. But find some people that, if you don't have somebody in your immediate circle of friends, right, do a little bit of research and find a book or a person that you admire or respect the journey that they're taking, and let that feed into you. So to your point, maybe you're not quite yet at the stage of a coach because you still feel a little vulnerable, or you're not quite sure you're ready to make that step, but there's a lot of resources that are available. You do need to be discerning to make sure that you're being selective with that.
Yeah.
But taking advantage of that opportunity to be reminded that you are not alone in that feeling of frustration, and you are going to have to be patient.
Yeah.
And so you can use that as support, which, I struggle with the patience piece. I have to remind myself on a regular basis. I talk about the tenacious patience a lot, right? Because I think you've got to be very intentional and actually say, I'm going to pause and I'm going to acknowledge it's going to take time.
One thing you said that came up to me was the impatience part. It has a lot to do with like, just be here now. Right. Like, and it's like, again, it's one of those things. Oh yeah, it's super easy. It's just like little things. For example, I'm on a long distance relationship. In the beginning, we'll be like, oh, it's going to be like X number of days until we see each other. And at some point I was like, I can't do that. I cannot do that. Because if I do that, I'm always like, oh yeah, so in 10 days, it's going to be whatever. No, but it's here now. I'm here now. And I'm doing all these cool things now today. Even if they're not super cool, even if I don't know, I have to work on my taxes or whatever, that's not cool. But it's what I'm doing now. So let's be more of like, okay, even if you're not loving the now and you really want to get to the vacation or to whatever important thing, what is like one tiny little thing that today is like, but here I am now. And because it's the only thing that we have. Everything else is literally non-existent. So the more that we can be in this, I truly believe that is the thing that gives people life satisfaction. The more you're like, I'm just here now and I love what I have, no matter what it is. And how can I love it more? Things will start to change in that way, because things are not going to change around you, probably, but they're going to change in your mind. And the way you see things is going to be different. And that's what creates your reality, because our reality is basically a whole hallucination of us making meaning of all the things that happen around us. So if you make it mean that everything is horrible, the universe is against you, that's what you're going to see. If you mean everything is perfect and here's what I am, and whenever I get to the other thing, I get to the other thing, that's also perfect.
Yeah, embracing the moment, absolutely,
Yeah.
and being very present. And even in those difficult times, which it's hard, but I think back a lot of the really difficult periods of my life. I wrote some of what I consider to be some of my most meaningful and beautiful poems. Now, doesn't mean that I'm like, when I have writer's block, I'm like, bring on the challenges, right? Like, that's not my,
Please don't.
but there is something that, there are emotions. And when we experience those emotions, as hard as it is in the moment to be going through that stress, heartbreak, whatever is the negative thing that we're feeling. And again, it's not to put a meaning on the emotion, but they're not ones we enjoy. We don't enjoy feeling
Yeah,
stressed or
yeah.
sad.
And it's the thing is like what I noticed what I started because I went to Rio last summer. I'm from there, so I go every summer with my kids, so they see family, etc. My boyfriend went to meet me. He had never gone to Brazil. On the third day, we both got so sick with COVID. I swear,
Oof.
so sick. And that was the end of it. That was the end of the story because we can't do anything. And, the time that we were good, then we had to come back. And I remember one day, the only thing we could do is go to the beach because it was winter. So there's not a lot of people at the beach. So cool. We just sat there when we were not dying. And I remember having the thought of like, oh my God, this sucks so bad. And immediately there was a thought that came on top of it. It was like, no, but everything's exactly as it should be. I don't know. Like, I was like, whoa, because I did not expect that. And I was like, okay, how is that? And I was like, okay, we can still be, look at it. We're at the beach in Rio, right?
Right.
And yes, we spent 3 days in bed dying, but we would have anyway. That was just what happened, right?
Right.
Arguing the reality is not going to make it better. So it's like, all right, well, we're here now. All right, how can we make this work? We're not going to do anything else. You're just going to know the beach very well, and that's going to be it. And maybe one day we're going to come back, but this is what's happening now.
No, right. And as much as like you don't want to submerge yourself too far into this thought, you don't know what other things might have happened. Like we tend to glorify the path we didn't take. Like, and in some cases, it may have brought us some of the things we imagine it would have brought us, but sometimes it doesn't. Right.
Yeah.
So we think like, oh, if I had just stayed in school, or oh, if I had just done this, where would I be?
Oh,
Like I
totally.
mentioned the Facebook,
Yeah.
what, maybe that would have
We
been a
don't
path
know.
that would have yielded whatever results, or what other things would I have missed out on? So if like in that moment, and it's again really difficult when you're feeling crummy, especially when you're sick
Yeah.
and you feel, that way, to just say, I'm just going to enjoy the fact that I'm laying in bed here. But knowing that we really don't know what we're really missing. We know what we think we're missing based on what we thought was going to happen. But we
Well,
don't
and
know what
also
we're
you don't know
really
what you're
missing.
gaining because honestly, one thing that comes to me a lot now when I'm in whatever kind of pain, be it physical, emotional, or whatever, I realized that there was never pain in my life that at the end of the pain, I was not a little different as a person.
Mm,
So now it makes it a little easier to be like, okay, this sucks amazingly right now. That is so, so, so bad. But I wonder what's going to happen on the other side of this because obviously I'm going to grow as a person. I'm going to evolve as a human. So
right.
something is going to be different. I wonder if the next time something like this happens, if I'm going to be more able to cope with it or whatever. But there's going to be something. I'm going to be a different person at the end of this pain. So that is a thought that does help me. And, it's something that I would offer that whenever you're in the sucky, you're just like, okay, this does suck. Hating it is not going to make it suck less.
Right.
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 So
I
how do
Go
you
ahead.
survive that and how do you get to the other side? Because it will pass. That is the one thing about storms that we know 100%. Storms eventually pass. No storm has ever lasted forever that we know of. In
Yeah,
here.
well, and one of the ways is to seek out people who can help us when we can't break through the fog ourselves,
Yeah.
or we can't. It's difficult to ride through those circumstances, right? We can, doesn't have to be a big community, but you reach out to somebody like you noted, a therapist, a coach.
Yeah.
You do want to be discerning, just same way as you want to be discerning about who you're watching in social media. You want to be discerning about who you're seeking advice from, that it's somebody who's going to genuinely hear you and help you to
Yeah.
navigate that in a way that's authentic for your path and your journey. But that's what we have to do. And unfortunately, a lot of times in those dark, difficult places, that's not our go-to. Sometimes we
Yeah.
do. We reach out and go like, I feel horrible, help me. But a lot of times it's hard to just get ourselves past the hurt of it.
Yeah.
And so that's where it becomes the intention, where you have to tell yourself, I don't want to do this right now, but I know intellectually that this is what I have to do, that I need to
Yeah.
reach out and tell somebody, can you help me?
Yeah. Absolutely. For sure. And I think if you know that no feeling can kill you, so you might feel uncomfortable asking for help, but like you're not gonna die of it. The worst that can happen, people say no. And you're like, all right. And then you're exactly where you started. Nothing changed.
Right. So tell a little bit about, you've got a cool story in the fact that you were in what many would say, many would aspire for, right? You had
Mhm.
this position that's got a lot of renown associated with it, and a lot of stress as well, right?
Mhm.
Understanding that when you're in that role, that's probably a little bit less sparkly than some people might think. But again, from an outside perspective, right? And you enjoyed it and you loved it and you were making a difference. But you knew that it was time for change, and you've carried that message into the lives of other people. I'm wondering if you'd had a you in your life at that point, like if you encountered somebody else who's in that type of position, how do you kind of help them to sort through is this, I just need to change some things about my life that will make this
Mhm.
easier, or do I need to make a big career change? What are maybe a couple of key things that you try to help them with making that decision?
Yeah, I think one important thing that I realized, first of all, if I had a coach at the time, it would have been much easier because I
Mm,
didn't know how to ask myself these questions. And now
right.
I might, but it's still helpful when there's another person looking at you. I'm like, how about this? Just
Right. Oh
how about
yeah.
your thoughts, right? Not like giving you advice, but just how. So, one thing that I think was really helpful was to figure out the things that I did want. I wanted to leave med. I loved being a doctor so much. I loved my patients. I love operating. There was lots of things that I didn't love, but I did love that. And I was thinking, okay, what do I want? And what I wanted was, I want to take my kids to school. I want to pick them up from school, and if they're sick, I want to be home with them. And I want to live wherever I want to live. I don't want to have to go to live in some whatever town because that's where they offer me a job. I want to travel in summer. So I wanted to be location independent. I wanted to own my time, and so that I could be present for my family. So that eliminated surgery. I was like, you cannot be a surgeon anymore. That is the end of it. Because there is a very clear, you're not location independent, and you're not
Right.
going to pick up your school, maybe sometimes, but it's not a given. Right. If they're sick, if you have surgery, you're going to go, you have someone else has to take care of your kids, right? You're not going to cancel your surgery because your kids are sick unless they're really, really sick. So I decided that that wasn't an option anymore. And it was not like, oh, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. Woo. No, that was not it, to be very clear, obviously. So, going through all the, okay, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that, and a lot of drama and a lot of sadness. And you do have to grieve that, because a lot of people ask me, oh, don't you miss being a doctor? I'm like, of course I miss it. Of course I miss it. I don't miss it enough to go back to doing it, but I do miss it. And I think that is the thing that a lot of people don't realize, be it with a job or with a relationship. They want it to be horrible so that they can leave. And I don't think
Mm,
that I did not leave my marriage was not horrible. We could have stayed married. I would assume a lot of people are married in the situation that we were. We are really good friends. We hang out. But it was like, but it was fine. I remember asking him at some point, I was like, what do you think of our relationship? And he was like, eh. I was like, no, I agree. And I do not want that. I want
right.
freaking fireworks. And sure, can you have fireworks all the time? I don't know, maybe. But I don't want to just like, oh yeah, you can't have that. That's not how life works. That's not
Right.
my experience right now, if you ask me. I do have lots of fireworks in my life and different things. So I think we believe those truths that is like, well, that's just how life is, and it's just supposed to be hard. Well, work is just supposed to suck. So like obviously, it's gonna suck. So I think thinking about the things that you do want and that you don't want, then you might be able to not only choose a career or even change a career. And you might notice sometimes it's like it's not the career, it's just this job in particular, or the way you're doing this job, or maybe you just need to work part-time instead of full-time. You're going to make less money, but okay, but now if you're
Right.
making a ton of money and you're miserable, how's that helping you? So I think those things, oh no, but I do have to have the 401k and blah blah blah. Do you though? Because doesn't seem like it's working super well for you right now. So those are the questions that I really always like to ask myself, and living intentionally and consciously. It's so funny
Hmm.
because I posted about this. I did not connect it to this life, but the post that I did today was exactly about that, because there's this Brazilian song that the title of the song is kind of like "Let Life Take Me." I was like, I don't want to let the life take me anywhere, because how is that? You're just like floating down the river. Like, no, wait a second. I do not want
Mm,
to do that. Right. When I tell people that I'm a retired surgeon, I'm like, you don't look like you're old enough to be retired. I'm like, you can be retired in whatever age. You just decide you're not doing that anymore, and then you're retired. That's how it works. Right? So
Yeah.
it's just like there are these things that you might have, and then telling people that you're a life coach now, wait, that's weird, right? It's like, but you were a surgeon. What did you do? Did you lose your license? Right? It's like, it's fine. People can have their thoughts because they already do. Remember that part. So it's really just figuring out what you want and seeing if the thing that you want is compatible with your career, with your relationship. For example, if you have a partner who you have repeatedly said, when I tell you things, you're not listening to me, or the person doesn't really reflect on their actions. Maybe at some point you're going to have to ask yourself, this is the person, that person is going to be like that. You're not going to change them. Do you want to continue with that relationship or not? Is the person who never going to reflect on their own actions someone you want to spend your life with? And then you might have to make really difficult choices, because you don't get to have a really amazing life without making really difficult choices. And that's the part that most people are like, yeah, I don't want to do that. But you're trading the long-term discomfort. You're just keeping the long-term discomfort instead of the short-term. And that's the part that I try to help clients with. I'm like, yeah, it's going to suck for a little bit, because a lot of people are going to be like, what are you doing? And then you have to go through that to get to the point where you can be really living the life that you want and really not even caring much about whatever people think.
Right. Well, and I think and that guided approach is important, because first off, it helps make a wise choice for you, right? Because if you're talking about what are my priorities, what's in alignment, because to your point, sometimes you think it's one thing and you're like, oh, actually, it's this that I have to change. But it also, on the other side of it, making big decisions is hard, to your point, because you're going to make difficult choices and switches along the way. But when you have taken the time to sit down and weigh those and really sort through it, it alleviates some of the discomfort, because you know what your plan is, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you're getting a procedure for something medical, because you're going to have a pain period, but but on the other side of this, I'm going to be better. So I think that's why those planning periods are so important, whether you're working with a coach or you're working independently, or however you're approaching it, that you don't just say, I hate my job, I'm going to switch careers, right?
Yeah.
You go,
And
like,
the part,
what is it that I don't like?
Yeah. And there's the part
through
of really grieving the thing that you're losing, because a lot of times I can't say, oh yeah, this is how my marriage was, and then we left and everything was great. That was not what happened. You have to grieve that. Okay, we lost all of that. There were all of these things that will not happen, because this is not a unit of 4 anymore. We're a different kind of unit, and we're different now. So, we're not going to go to New Zealand and be on an RV for 2 months, the 4 of us, because we're not. And I was like, so we have to grieve that and all the little things that go with it. So that is a very important part that also a lot of people want to skip, and just like, oh, either I'm super happy with that decision or it was the wrong decision. No, you can be really sad about a decision and still be the right decision. And then you have to grieve it, because there is a reason that in many cultures a person dies, and then you have, in Catholic, I grew up Catholic, so there's a 7th-day mass, because you need some time to be like, okay, this happened. Now let's reconvene after 7 days. So there is a need for, and obviously I wish it was 7 days in most of the times, but you do have to keep not just like blocking. I don't want to think about being a doctor anymore. No, the times that I sit in my chair and I do a whole procedure in my mind, because also the brain doesn't know exactly when things are happening in real life or not. So it's kind of like, oh, that was satisfying. Not as satisfying as the real thing for sure, but also on how to deal with insurance and be, on call for 16 hours. So yay.
Right. Yeah, no. And and what you said too about things being happy and being sad at the same time. I mean, there's a reason why all those life choices, they talk about the big life choices. And obviously some of those life things, like loss of a loved one, it's just concrete sad, but like a move or a marriage or, things that you think, okay, these are really good, positive things, but there's a lot of change. And some of the changes are things that you also enjoyed. And so there is that, to your point, grieving period. And we do culturally sometimes put well, why are you sad? You just got married. You should be happy. And it's I'm not upset that I just got married. I'm just sad that I moved 3 states away, or I'm sad about this new, house that we're living in. And I think honoring that and acknowledging that all of those things can coexist together within us gives us a much purer existence and experience. and allows us to do more of what you're talking about, be more authentic to ourselves, because we're not trying to keep one part of us in check. Like, well, I got to keep the sad part because this is supposed to be a happy thing.
No, yeah, and you can exactly. That is such a good. I remember when I was pregnant with one of my kids, and a friend of mine who does not have kids and never got pregnant. I was like, "Oh my God, everything sucks and I hate it. I cannot move and all that." And she's like, "Oh, you can't talk like that because being pregnant is such a miracle." I'm like, "Can you shut up right now?" I was like, "I'm not sad that I am pregnant. I'm just annoyed that I cannot drink or sit or move or sleep or do anything." And that is fine. And I think that is the part that a lot of times, and I call this gaslighting yourself for gratitude. You are like, I
Mm,
cannot complain because I have a house and I have a car and I have a relationship and I have my wonderful kids and I have all this amazing life. So of course I can't be sad because, or want to change anything, because if you want to change something, it means you're not grateful. That is not true. That is so not true.
right.
Or like having goals is not okay because, oh my gosh, look at all that I have. And some people are there, in the Gaza, whatever. It's like, what? No, you can't be like that, because there's always going to be someone that's going to be so much worse than you, and it's not a competition. So I think that is really important to know, that all these things can be all together, and doesn't mean that you're sad about your marriage. It just means that you're losing all these things, and you're going to gain things that you don't know, but you are losing things. But the things, when you let go of something, you know what you're letting go of. So if you're moving 3 states away, you know what you're missing. You're missing this
Right.
thing here. You don't know what you're gaining at all. You can't see that.
Right.
So obviously brains hate whatever unfamiliar thing. So it's like, yeah, let's stay with it's better the pain that we know than the fear of the unknown. Let's just sit here. Let's not leave ever,
Right.
because
Right.
this is safe.
Yeah, we go into fight or flight panic, and I think you mentioned something that's integral as well, because on the flip side of it, you're right. We have to give ourselves grace when we don't grieve, also the way that somebody might expect us to, about something that's going on in our lives or that's going on in the world, because we are just still trying to all sort things out in our own way. And the best thing that we can do is be our best version of ourselves in this world, and
Yeah.
that's going to allow other people to see it and be it. So
Yeah.
yeah, just allowing all of those emotions to exist and live in gratitude and understand that there's things coming forward.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Now, I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can, like, what is the best way for people to follow you, connect with you, reach out to you, all that good stuff?
Sure. So I am Dr. Manuela Powell in all the social media. I'm a lot of Instagram. So if you want to connect with me there, that'll be great. And my website is just my name.com. So manuelapowell.com. And you can have a lot of information there.
Yeah, and I would encourage people, both from an educational and an entertainment value. Your videos are like, I see them, and I'll tell you what, even like sometimes, like, like my phone will be on, but it'll be muted, and I mean, I start laughing even when I can't hear what you're saying, just by your facial expressions. I'm like, I don't even know when I unmute this what she's going to be saying, but I'm already laughing because you're like walking into a room and making this suspicious look. So
I do
I
love my reels. So yeah, if y'all are on Instagram, please come and follow me, because I think I'm hilarious.
you are hilarious. You're definitely getting the laughter sparkle out there.
Yay.
Parting words for everybody. Life tip, career tip, whatever kind of thing you want to leave everybody with. There's no particular focus here. Just your last thoughts for people from this conversation.
I think one is just like, if there's any version of not this, I don't want this anymore in your life, just go figure it out. Just go, I don't know what it means. But if you're like, I think I don't like this, explore it. Don't like, I'll think about it tomorrow. No, just go look at it. Go inquire.
Seize the moment.
Yeah, but just go look at it. Like, why don't I like? Okay, go just ask yourself, because a lot of times they're like, oh, I don't like this. Oh no, let's not think about it, because then it means I'm gonna have to have a divorce. I'm like, wait, maybe not. Maybe you just have to have conversations with your partner and say, hey, you know what? I want to change some stuff in our relationship. Maybe like establish some boundaries or whatever. Right. So just like, if you don't like there's something in your life that you constantly keeps coming back. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this. Stop putting it away and go actually think about it and fix it. Because as far as we know, there's just this one life. We don't know about anything else. So just go freaking enjoy it.
Excellent. All right. Well, you heard it, everybody. Go out there and ask yourself whether you're where you want to be and who you want to be.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this
Thank
wonderful
you.
conversation. I
It
enjoyed
was
spending this
great.
time, and it's funny that originally when I was doing these, they were going to be in general 5 minutes and then 15 minutes and then 20 minutes and 30 minutes. And then I just decided, you know what? I don't even care. I'm just going to have the conversation.
Let's just have a conversation.
I do like every once in a while I look at the clock just to make sure, because, there are calls and meetings and things that we both have to go on. So I want to make sure, like 3 hours later.
Yeah.
But I just enjoy the natural conversation and the way that it flows and hearing what things people say and ask and note. So I really appreciate you being here. I hope that folks find you for both education, inspiration, and entertainment, for sure.
Yeah, same.
And I appreciate you for giving us some time today and for sharing it. And thank you to everybody who watched live or after the fact.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deb. It was great.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.